Hello everybody and welcome to Streaming Charts with Dan. Yes, it has been a long time since we did this show. I had the honeymoon and everything else, the holidays, award season, and every time I had Streaming Charts on my plate, something pushed it back, something came up. So we have a lot of stuff to catch up on. But 2023 has also come to an end. We have a full year's worth of numbers for Netflix. We're getting to the end of the year with our Nielsen numbers. So there's a lot of that we can look at. We can look at where Loki fell as far as the MCU, the most streamed movie of the year, barring something coming in this last month or so, which could actually happen. It's not Moana anymore, so we're going to see what that film is and a lot more. But let's just jump down into the numbers because we do have a lot to go over, several weeks worth. And we will look first at the most rented and purchased movies right now on the iTunes store. This is as of January 6th, the day I'm taping this episode. Oppenheimer is at number 1, available for purchase and rental. Then we have Killers of the Flower Moon. It will soon be streaming on Apple TV+. Right now, it's in that purchase premium video on demand window. The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is also available for purchase and premium video on demand. It's there at number 3, followed by Trolls Band Together, available for purchase and PVOD. Anatomy of a Fall, one of my favorite movies of 2023, is at number 5, available for purchase and rental. Followed by Taylor Swift, The Eras Tour, still there for that 1989 PVOD price. Then The Bricklayer, a new film available for purchase and PVOD at about $9.99, so the price point is a little bit lower. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 is at number 8, Past Lives is at number 9, and Barbie's at number 10. And looking at this chart, Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, Anatomy of a Fall, Past Lives, Barbie. I think that there are some folks that are getting the awards movies in before awards season really gets underway, with the Golden Globes happening this weekend and all of the Guild nominations coming in. We're getting closer and closer to Oscar season, and I think some people want to see what all the buzz is about. Looking at the top 10 programs on Amazon Prime Video, this is in the US only for January 6th. At number 1 is Reacher. The second season is now available over on Prime, followed by Saltburn, which is a movie that had a good performance in theaters, but has really taken off on streaming. And that was sort of Amazon's strategy here. Yes, put Saltburn in theaters, but it had a fairly short theatrical window, and once it hit home viewing, that's when the buzz picked up. It hit social media. I've heard TikTok and everything is all about Saltburn, and this is sort of one of those hybrid strategies that we see now. Theatrical is a component, but you want to get it home so people can start buzzing about it and talking about it. I heard way more about Saltburn since it premiered on Amazon Prime Video than I ever did when it was in theaters. This is a way I think that maybe these two strategies could work together. Perhaps they're starting to figure it out. I don't know. In third place is Transformers: Rise of the Beasts, which finished its first run over on Paramount+. It's now available on Amazon Prime Video. Sound of Freedom is in fourth place, followed by Foe, another movie that had a very small, limited theatrical run and is now available as an Amazon Prime original. The Flash, now non-exclusive to Max, is at number 6, followed by His Only Son, which is another Angel Studios film, along with Sound of Freedom. The Bad Guys is at number 8. The Amazon original series Coach Prime is at number 9. And The Summer I Turned Pretty, which has been a very big streaming hit, is at number 10. We have a lot of Netflix data to go over, so let's jump right in. We're going all the way to the last week in October, which is when I sort of put things aside in order to go to LA and take care of all the wedding stuff. So let's start there with the week of October 30th through November 5th. At number 1 that week was Wing Women, which logged 18.47 million views. It's a French movie co-written, directed by, and starring Melanie Laurent. At number 2 is the Netflix movie Locked In, starring Famke Janssen as a patient in a coma with a mysterious past. Then we had Pain Hustlers, which didn't really make that much of an impression on streaming, in third place at 15.22 million, followed by the Netflix original series All the Light We Cannot See, a World War II drama set in Europe from creator Stephen Knight. Then we have Cold Pursuit in fifth place, starring Liam Neeson. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse making its Netflix debut with 8.6 million viewers in its first week, followed by Burning Betrayal in 7th place, Sister Death in 8th place, Javan Extended in 9th place, and Old Dads in 10th place. Moving on to November 6th through the 12th, that was the debut week of David Fincher's The Killer on the charts, which logged 27.85 million views in its first week. Locked In is in second place, followed by Wing Women. F9, The Fast Saga, which I don't believe was streaming on Netflix here in the United States, but worldwide was available, brought in 10.45 million views in fourth place, followed by All the Light We Cannot See. Then the Netflix documentary movie Sly, the Netflix film Nyad, starring Annette Bening and Jodie Foster. There's some some awards buzz around the performances in that film. Summer Vacation is at number 8. It's a Spanish language romp about entertainers at a summer resort. Then we had Pain Hustlers at number 9 and Selling Sunset Season 7. It's a bit of a tongue twister there, coming in at number 10. For the week of November 13th through the 19th, The Killer remained number 1 with 22.25 million views. In second place was the debut of Best Christmas Ever. This is as we were ramping into the Thanksgiving holiday, which means it's time for the Christmas movies to roll out. This movie starred Heather Graham, Brandy, and Jason Biggs, the most popular cast of 1999, in a drama surrounding a Christmas newsletter, and only a geriatric millennial like me would truly get how weird it is to see Heather Graham and Jason Biggs playing a married couple. In third place was The Crown Season 6. This was the debut of that final season with 11.13 million views as it rounds out its run. In fourth place is Matt Rife Natural Selection, a comedy series which got 7.41 million views in its opening week. I didn't really know who Matt Rife was until I was researching the show, and I think I'm okay with maybe not knowing a whole lot more. In fifth place is Criminal Code Season 1, a crime series out of Portugal, followed by Monster Hunter, which is a pandemic-era movie. It brought in about 6 million views in sixth place. All the Light We Cannot See is at number 7. Believer 2 came in 8th place, a South Korean crime film and the sequel to 2018's Believer. Then we have Locked In and Wing Women rounding out the top 10. Going now to November 20th through the 26th as people gathered for the Thanksgiving holiday. Leo, the animated film featuring the voice of Adam Sandler, is at number 1. Sandler has had a lot of success on Netflix. 34.6 million views for Leo in its opening week, followed by Squid Game The Challenge, which debuted to just over 20 million views in its opening week. It's very odd to me that Netflix would have a show, the biggest show in their history, like Squid Game, and seemingly completely misunderstand the message of said show. Because if you watch Squid Game and the takeaway that you have is, hey, we should make that game show into a real thing, then I don't think you're really watching Squid Game, if you know what I mean. But, you know, they did it. So Squid Game The Challenge at number 2. Best Christmas Ever at number 3. At number 4 is Last Call for Istanbul, which is a Turkish film about two people who meet for one night in New York City. Just over 10.75 million views. The Crown Season 6 is in 5th place, followed by The Killer, which drops to 6th place. At number 7 is See You on Venus, about a young woman looking for her birth mother, accompanied by a troubled young man. I'm sure that sparks will not fly and a romance will not bloom. At number 8 is A Nearly Normal Family, a series out of Sweden about the breakdown of a family following a murder. Then we have Believer 2 in 9th place and Criminal Code Season 1 in 10th place. Looking at November 27th through December 3rd, going into the last month of the year, Leo remained number 1 with 23.6 million views. Family Switch debuted in 2nd place with 22.2 million views. This was a body switch comedy. Jennifer Garner and Ed Helms doing the old body switch with their kids, directed by McG. I heard there was a scene in this movie where the siblings have to kiss each other while in the bodies of their parents. So I assume the sequel to this movie is going to be called Family Therapy. Squid Game The Challenge is in 3rd place with 19.92 million views, followed by A Nearly Normal Family and Last Call for Istanbul. At number 6 is Bad Surgeon, a UK true crime series about a groundbreaking Italian doctor who implanted new windpipes. Given the name of the show, I'm guessing he was not great at his job. In 7th place was Best Christmas Ever, followed by Obliterated Season 1 about a special ops team who has to foil a terrorist plot while wasted in Las Vegas. I haven't heard great things about it, but a lot of people sure seem to watch it. My Demon Season 1 comes in 9th place. This is a show out of South Korea about a CEO who falls in love with a sexy demon. Okay. And then in 10th place was Catering Christmas, a non-Netflix 2022 holiday movie about a caterer who's in charge of catering Christmas. The movie kind of explains itself. The week of December 4th through the 10th brought us the debut of Leave the World Behind, a massive debut for the film from Mr. Robot creator Sam Esmail about a world suddenly deprived of technology. 98.7 million hours watched, and this didn't even sit on the service for an entire week. 41.72 million views in that first week. We'll talk more about Leave the World Behind in just a second. Family Switch is in 2nd place, followed by Leo with another 14.25 million views. The Super Mario Mario Brothers movie making its Netflix debut with 13.24 million views and over 20 million hours watched. This is something that we're seeing a lot, is a movie like the Super Mario Brothers movie or some of the other ones we've talked about will go through their exclusive window on their various streaming services, and then they'll come over to Netflix, and sometimes they will pop up on the chart higher than they ever were before, and that's what we're going to see with Super Mario here in the next few weeks. For all of the talk about all of these different streaming services, it does seem like a common thread for success for a lot of stuff, especially stuff that's not on Disney Plus, is to run through Netflix still after all these years. In 5th place was Obliterated, followed by Catering Christmas in 6th place. In 7th place was the series My Life with the Walter Boys, about a young girl who adjusts to life with her new adopted family, which consists of around a dozen boys. I'm guessing some of them are probably cute. That might be the premise of the show. In 8th place is the movie Nobody, followed by Christmas as Usual, about a Norwegian woman who brings her Indian fiancé to Christmas. I'm sure the movie did not revolve around any embarrassing cultural misunderstandings. And then Squid Game: The Challenge comes in 10th place. On December 11th through the 17th, Leave the World Behind stayed at number 1 with over 100 million hours watched and 44.86 million views. We're going to see this movie on the charts. It's still on the charts right now. It is rapidly heading toward being one of the most watched movies in Netflix history. I missed the boat on this one because I was coming back and there's so much going on. I was trying to catch up on all the awards movies. I haven't even seen this, but this is one of the most popular films in Netflix history as far as total watch time, and we'll see how far it goes into 2023. A lot of people taking this movie in the month of December. In 2nd place was My Life with the Walter Boys with 12.8 million views, followed by Chicken Run: Dawn of the Nugget, a follow-up to the original Chicken Run movie, which came out over 20 years ago. 20.3 million hours watched and 11.94 million views. In 4th place was Leo, still hanging there in the top 5 with 9.42 million views, followed by Family Switch in 5th place and the Super Mario Brothers in 6th place. In 7th place was Yu Yu Hakusho Season 1, an adaptation of the manga. That's a Netflix original series. The Crown Season 6 returned with its last batch of episodes and charted up at number 8 with 5.82 million views, followed by Underwater starring Kristen Stewart and M. Night Shyamalan's Old, 2 non-Netflix movies, rounding out the top 10 with just over 5 million views apiece. Looking at December 18th through the 24th, leading right into Christmas, Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon Part 1 debuted at number 1 with 23.87 million views, which really only pales in comparison to Leave the World Behind, which had a huge couple of weeks. Leave the World Behind is in 2nd place with another 19.74 million views, followed by Chicken Run: Dawn of the Nugget, My Life with the Walter Boys, and the Super Mario Brothers movie moving back up into the top 5. Then we have Leo at number 6, Family Switch at number 7, Yu Yu Hakusho at number 8, Holiday in the Vineyards at number 9 with just under 6 million views, and The Crown Season 6 at 5.71 million views. Perhaps the last time we'll ever see that show in the Netflix top 10. And finally, we have the week of December 25th through the 31st, so the chart ends on the last day of the year, which gives us some what I like to call clean analysis when we're talking about viewership numbers for the year 2023 on Netflix. But let's look at this holiday week first. At number 1 was Rebel Moon Part 1, which brought in another 33.98 million views, so a fairly solid hold there. Leave the World Behind was in 2nd place with another 14.6 million views, followed by Money Heist Berlin, another entry in the very popular Money Heist series of shows with 11.3 million views. Julia Roberts' Pretty Woman was in 4th place with 8.37 million views. Maybe the algorithm was suggesting it to people that were watching Leave the World Behind and they just let it autoplay over Christmas. The Manny, a Netflix original series, is in 5th place at 8.24 million views, followed by Chicken Run: Dawn of the Nugget at number 6. Ricky Gervais' Armageddon, a new comedy special, at number 7. A Vampire in the Family, the Netflix original movie, at number 8. The Super Mario Brothers movie with 7.37 million views at number 9. And Leo rounding out the top 10 with 12 million hours watched and another 6.73 million views. So the last day listed on Netflix's rating chart was December 31st, which means I now have a comprehensive list of the entire ratings picture for Netflix as reported on their top 10 list throughout the year for the entire year of 2023 cleanly. So I can now give you the 10 most watched programs of calendar year 2023 on Netflix. So starting from January 1st to December 31st. Now this will reset as far as the calendar chart. I will still track how 2023 releases releases did going into 2024. So things like Leo or Leave the World Behind or stuff that might track a little bit into 2024. I will keep track of how it does on this chart. But as far as the calendar year chart, next week or next time that we do the show, I will have reset the clock. So let's look at the 10 most watched Netflix programs from January 1st to December 31st, 2023. At number 1 was The Mother. Extraction 2 was in second place at 134.9 million views. However, when we look at 2023 programming and the amount of time that it's watched in total, Leave the World Behind would only need to put up another 16 million or so views in order to become the most watched Netflix program released in 2023, and it looks very likely that it will do that in the next week or two. Murder Mystery 2 gets bumped down one spot to number 4, and then Adam Sandler is right underneath his own movie with another movie that he did the voice for, Leo, at 95.85 million views, and it's looking to potentially move up the chart as well. The Night Agent Season 1 comes in 6th place, followed by Heart of Stone, Luther the Fallen Son, Nowhere, and Queen Charlotte, A Bridgerton Story. You People and Your Place or Mine were eliminated from this chart on the last week of the year. They were there for most of the year, but couldn't quite survive that holiday rush of programming. Well, let's jump now from the Netflix figures to the Nielsen figures. Now, these are delayed even more than the Netflix ones because we don't usually get these numbers until about a month after these things have aired. So we're actually not quite up to the end of 2023 on most of these numbers, but there are a few interesting things to note. I'm not going to go quite as in-depth as far as watch time per available episode for each individual week because we have so much ground to cover. So this is more of a general or a broad look at the numbers, and we'll get into the weeds, the nitty-gritty a little bit more on the next show when we're not quite catching up with, 3 months worth of data or so. And let's go back to the week of October 9th through the 15th, which was when Haunted Mansion ruled Disney Plus at 10.9 million hours watched, followed by Amazon's The Burial debuting in second place, just under Haunted Mansion. Then we had Elemental, Reptile. American Made on Netflix is at number 5. I've seen this movie pop up in the chart a few times. This is one that when it does go to Netflix, a lot of people watch it. Casper is in 6th place. Ma in 7th place on Netflix, followed by The Nightmare Before Christmas, Nowhere, and Fair Play. Looking at October 16th through the 22nd, that was the week that Old Dads debuted on Netflix with 12.1 million hours watched, followed by Elemental on Disney+, The Burial on Amazon, Haunted Mansion on Disney+, and then Long Shot available on Amazon and Netflix at 6.3 million hours. Then we had No Hard Feelings, a Sony film, which makes its streaming debut on Netflix at 5.2 million hours watched, followed by Tammy at number 7 for some reason, The Devil on Trial at number 8, The Nightmare Before Christmas, and Reptile round out the top 10. For the week of October 23rd through the 29th, No Hard Feelings was actually the most streamed movie in the United States at 18.8 million hours watched, followed by Five Nights at Freddy's. We covered this on Charts with Dan. This was a simultaneous streaming theatrical release. It brought in 12.3 million hours watched, but was not dominant on streaming as it was in theaters the weekend that it opened. Old Dads is in 3rd place. Pain Hustlers on Netflix. I mentioned this movie was really just sort of a blip, despite the fact you had Emily Blunt and Chris Evans and a great cast. 9 million hours watched and a 4th place debut for Pain Hustlers. Elemental, keep track of Elemental. You keep seeing it in that top 5, right? 7.7 million hours watched. The Nightmare Before Christmas peaking right around Halloween at 5.6 million hours watched, actually even more than Haunted Mansion on Disney+. That came in with 4.6 million hours watched. Then we have Minions on Netflix, Knights of the Zodiac on Netflix. Good Lord, what a terrible movie. And The Burial on Amazon rounding out the top 10. Then we have October 30th through November 5th, so a couple days into Halloween and then going into the first week of November. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse was the most streamed movie in the US at 18.9 million hours watched. Five Nights at Freddy's came in second at 9.3 million hours watched. Elemental in 3rd place, another 7 million hours watched. Pain Hustler stayed in 4th place at 6.6 million hours watched, followed by No Hard Feelings in 5th. 2017's The Mummy in 6th place. There just have to be some people that thought that they were watching the other one, right? Minions had the same watch time as The Mummy, but I just put it in 7th because I don't like Minions. Cold Pursuit debuts in 8th place, The Change-Up in 9th, and A Haunting in Venice on Hulu comes in 10th with 4.9 million hours watched. Looking at the week of November 6th through the 12th, that was the week that The Killer debuted. It was the #1 movie worldwide, and it was the #1 streaming movie in the US with 10.8 million hours watched, followed by Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Another Sony film there, Insidious: The Red Door, comes in 3rd place at 7.35 million hours watched. every year right around November, December, you start seeing Home Alone pop up on the most streamed movies list, and there it is on Disney+. 7 million hours watched November 6th through the 12th, followed by Elemental, still in the top 5, 5.86 million hours watched. Minions at number 6, No Hard Feelings at number 7. The Grinch on Peacock comes in at number 8. The Super Mario Brothers movie hitting the charts again with 4.1 million hours watched, and then Five Nights at Freddy's spending one last week in the top 10 at 4.13 million hours watched. For the week of November 13th through the 19th, The Killer remained number 1, followed by Lone Survivor and Best Christmas Ever, both on Netflix. Home Alone stays in the top 5 at number 4, followed by Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Blue Beetle made its debut on Max, but wasn't a huge view getter. It was in the top 10, though, 5.58 million hours watched. Elemental actually tied with Blue Beetle in its debut week, although Elemental's been around for several weeks now at number 7. Paw Patrol the Mighty Movie made its debut on Paramount Plus at 4.85 million hours watched, followed by The Grinch. And then Moana, which we often see, especially on a slower week, popping back into the top 10. It came in at 3.71 million hours watched over on Disney+. Then we have November 20th through the 26th, Thanksgiving time. Leo, the most streamed movie in the U.S. as it was worldwide at 25.4 million hours watched, followed by Elf, available on both Hulu and Max with 11 million hours watched. That is one of 2 movies that we watch just about every Christmas in our household. In third place was Home Alone, followed by The Grinch and Blue Beetle. The original streaming film Genie. Everyone watched Genie, right? Starring, I want to say, Melissa McCarthy. Debuts at number 6 with 6.78 million hours watched. Sounds like a great investment. Best Christmas Ever is at number 7. Elemental still in the top 10 at 6.18 million hours watched at number 8. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is at number 9. And then Christmas Vacation, the other movie along with Elf that we watch pretty much every year in my household, is in 10th place, available on Hulu and Max with 5.68 million hours watched. The week of November 27th through December 3rd saw Leo stay in the top spot with 14.3 million hours watched. Family Switch gave it a run for its money. It debuted with 13.9 million hours watched. In third place was Amazon's Candy Cane Lane, starring Eddie Murphy, with 13.4 million hours watched. So a fairly robust competition for that 1, 2, 3 spot. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny made its debut on Disney Plus with 8.916 million hours watched in fourth place, followed by the Super Mario Brothers movie on Netflix with 7.75 million hours watched. Then we have Elf, The Grinch, and Home Alone, so a lot of holiday viewing there. Hunter Killer, Gerard Butler in a Submarine in 9th place at 5.2 million hours watched, and then The Polar Express available on Hulu and Max at 4.58 million hours watched. And then this is the last week that we currently have data for in 2023, so we have about 3 weeks left of 2023 data to get from Nielsen. This was the week that Leave the World Behind hit streaming, and you can see 32 million hours watched according to Nielsen in the US alone. Easily the number 1 movie, followed by the Super Mario Brothers movie, which really popped on Netflix in that second week of availability at 22.48 million hours watched. Candy Cane Lane stays in the top 3, followed by Family Switch and Leo. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny falls to number 6. Then we have Home Alone, The Grinch, and Elf. And then Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. This was a big Macaulay Culkin week on the streaming charts. Both Home Alone movies charting. Home Alone 2 bringing in about 5.46 million hours watched. So I know that was a lot of movies that we just talked about, but the one, and I noted it, that kept popping up was Elemental. Elemental is a movie that has been very interesting to track. It was interesting on Charts with Dan when I was looking at its box office. It did well worldwide. It had great legs domestically, even though it had a very disappointing opening. And I said that it came close enough to breaking even theatrically. It did not turn a profit theatrically, but I said it looks like it's a popular film and that it will continue to do well outside of the theatrical window and perhaps generate profit in other areas. Elemental didn't just do well on streaming here in the US. It put up enough hours to become, according to the information that Nielsen has provided, the most watched movie streamed across all streaming services, original or library, of 2023. 125.3 million hours watched. It's the new number 1. It displaces Moana on Disney Plus. And we will see how Leave the World Behind does as far as domestic viewing, if it's going to be able to put up enough numbers and enough hours to displace Elemental from that number one spot. But the comeback story for Elemental continues. It started in the theatrical window, and then it has now moved on to streaming. This is, I think, ideally what Disney would like to happen with all of their films, except for the part about not turning a profit theatrically. I think they would love for all of their movies to do well in theaters and then become huge streaming view getters. That hasn't really happened with most of them, honestly, but Elemental has been a cross-platform hit. Obviously, people talked about it when it was in theaters. More people went to see it than I certainly even thought it would after opening weekend. And that word of mouth has now spread onto people that are watching it. There's a lot of people watching it at home. I think this is very indicative that kids like it. When you see something getting repeat viewings, that means that kids probably enjoy it. And Elemental has gone from something that seemed like a forgettable entry in the Pixar history to perhaps a movie that could even generate enough goodwill to get a sequel somewhere down the line. It seems sure to stay alive with merchandising and stuff like that. So, Elemental, one of those movies, even I was a little too quick to write it off. I mean, you can never really guess what's going to happen, but this is one of those rare stories really in this new climate where one platform seems to have bailed out another platform, where somehow the cross-platform thing worked. It worked with Encanto, which was in a very different time. Encanto had an abbreviated theatrical run due to the later stages of the pandemic and the theater closures. But Elemental now, a success story for Disney and Pixar, where really I didn't think that there was going to be one. Also making a late surge to the top 10 list was the Super Mario Brothers movie. It was boosted by being added to Netflix near the end of the year when a lot of kids especially are at home and watching stuff on TV or streaming. 80.3 million hours watched domestically. Then we have Avatar: The Way of Water, which ends up at number 4, and Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, which winds up at number 5. You People ends up in 6th place, followed by Encanto, A Man Called Otto, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and The Mother. Netflix and Disney dominating this chart as far as movies watched. There were some, like the Super Mario Brothers movie, that played on Peacock for a while. But the two dominant platforms in the US right now, to me, are pretty clearly Netflix and Disney Plus as far as movies watched, shows watched, hours watched. You have big pops from other places. There are some hit shows or hit movies from other networks, but Disney Plus and Netflix, the two that are most consistently delivering high-viewed programming. When we look at the most watched movies since Nielsen began reporting data back in 2020, Elemental is now also on that list. Encanto remains the easy number one at 481.3 million hours watched, followed by Moana, which is now over 300 million hours watched. Then we have Luca at 169.1 million hours, Turning Red at 141.3 million hours, Sing 2 at 138.9 million hours, and then Elemental entering the chart in 6th place and probably looking to move up into that top 5 fairly soon with over 125 million hours watched. The Christmas surge puts Home Alone up to number 7 with 119.9 million hours watched. That is a movie that's very seasonal. You don't see it about 48 weeks out of the year or maybe 46, and then it pops up every single year. Then we have Glass Onion at number 8, Raya and the Last Dragon at number 9, Red Notice at number 10, and Hocus Pocus 2 dropping out of the top 10 to make room for Elemental. Let's move on now to the most watched streaming shows on Nielsen, and we will start back on October 9th, which was the debut of The Fall of the House of Usher on Netflix, which brought in 20.5 million hours watched. Suits comes in 2nd place, followed by Grey's Anatomy, Bluey, Love is Blind, NCIS, Lupin on Netflix at number 7, CoComelon at number 8, Gilmore Girls in 9th place, and then Loki debuting on the overall top 10 at 9.8 million hours watched. More on Loki in a minute. The Fall of the House of Usher topped the chart again for October 16th through the 22nd, followed by Suits, Grey's Anatomy, Bluey, and NCIS. Gilmore Girls was in 6th place, followed by CoComelon in 7th. Bodies on Netflix debuts at number 8 with 10.5 million hours watched, as well as Goosebumps in 9th place. This was available on both Disney Plus and Hulu. It brought in 9.9 million hours watched in its first week on the charts, and then Netflix's Love is Blind rounds out the top 10. For the week of October 23rd through the 29th, Suits reclaimed the top spot at 16.6 million hours watched, followed by The Fall of the House of Usher in 2nd place, Grey's Anatomy in 3rd place, Bluey in 4th place, Bodies moving up to 5th on Netflix, Gilmore Girls in 6th, followed by NCIS at 7th. The nature documentary series Life on Our Planet comes in 8th at 11.26 million hours watched. CoComelon is at 9th, and Friends, which was sadly spurred on by the unfortunate and untimely passing of Matthew Perry. We'll see Friends on the charts a lot in the next several weeks. 9.7 million hours watched to round out the top 10. For the week of October 30th through November 5th, Grey's Anatomy was the most watched streaming program, followed by Suits, which is beginning to lose its grip on that top spot. Friends, again motivated by real-life tragedy, moves up to number 3 with 14.3 million hours watched, followed by Bluey at number 4. All the Light We Cannot See debuted in 5th place in the US with 12 million hours watched, followed by Gilmore Girls in 6th place, NCIS in 7th place, CoComelon in 8th place, The Family Business on Netflix in 9th place, and Botched, available on both Netflix and Peacock, in 10th place with 9.4 million hours watched. For the week of November 6th through the 12th, Bluey ascended to the top spot with 15.3 million hours watched. That show has really come on strong over the last year or so. Followed by Grey's Anatomy in 2nd place, Suits in 3rd place, Loki, which continued its seasonal run and moves up to number 4 on the overall watch chart with 12.55 million hours watched. Then we have All the Light We Cannot See in 5th place, Friends in 6th place, Selling Sunset in 7th place, NCIS in 8th place, 6 Feet Under, which is one of those shows that Max licensed to Netflix. Again, it was on Max forever. We never saw it on the charts. They put it on Netflix. Now it's on the charts at 11.5 million hours watched. And then Gilmore Girls in 10th place at 11.1 million hours watched. Looking at the week of November 13th through the 19th, The Crown returned to number 1 at 15.7 million hours watched in the US, just edging out Grey's Anatomy, which had 15.6 million hours watched, and Bluey, which had 15.35 million hours watched. Suits falls to number 4, followed by NCIS, Friends, and 6 Feet Under. Gilmore Girls is in 8th place, and then 2 shows returning to the charts in 9th and 10th place, CoComelon and Shameless, both on Netflix. For the week of November 20th through the 26th, Squid Game The Challenge debuted number 1 in the US with 23.7 million hours watched, followed by Bluey with 19.45 million hours watched, and then another show that we are going to see ascendant here on the streaming chart, Young Sheldon, which was licensed out to Netflix. It had been on Max for a while, and Young Sheldon is having a rebirth on Netflix. I don't want to give too much away, but it seems like it is one of those shows like Suits. It's not yet putting up the kind of numbers that Suits did, but it is still growing, where people just discovered it when it hit Netflix. And now Young Sheldon is one of the most watched shows across streaming for a number of weeks. I would not have predicted it, but you really can't predict what people are going to watch on streaming. A lot of it is, what are you putting in front of them and where are you putting it in front of them? And Young Sheldon on Netflix has been an unexpected streaming hit. Grey's Anatomy's in 4th place, followed by The Crown in 5th place, NCIS in 6th place, The Suits falling out of the top 5 to 7th place. The First Wives Club, available on Netflix, debuts in 8th place, followed by Friends and 6 Feet Under. And you can't see this on the top 10 chart, but the week of November 20th through the 26th was also the last week that Loki appeared on Nielsen's chart as one of the 20 most viewed programs acquired and original based on their listings, which means that we now have somewhat of a full season's worth of data for the second season of Loki to see how much were people watching it and how does it stack up against other shows in the MCU. So let's take a look at some of those numbers. When we look at MCU TV series by total watch time, meaning millions of hours, Ms. Marvel remains in last place. As I mentioned, we don't even have viewership data for all weeks of that show, followed by the first season of What If, Secret Invasion, She-Hulk, Moon Knight, and Hawkeye. Loki Season 2 by total watch time comes in 4th place all time in the MCU with 68 million hours reported. That's behind the early MCU shows, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, WandaVision, and Loki Season 1. So as far as total watch time, what we can say about Loki Season 2 is that it did as good as any show other than the first few that Disney put out when they were first launching these MCU TV series. It looked like it was able to recapture some of that magic and some of that viewer interest that many other MCU shows had been losing. When we look at it by hours watched per episode, Ms. Marvel remains in last place along with What If. She-Hulk had 5.8 million hours watched per episode, followed by Secret Invasion at 7 million hours, WandaVision at 10 million hours watched per episode, Moon Knight and Hawkeye at 11 million hours watched, and then Loki Season 2 comes in third, 11.36 million hours watched per episode. That comes in behind The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which was at 13 million hours hours watched per episode. And then Loki season 1 had 16 million hours watched per episode. So that means a loss of hours watched per episode of about a third between Loki season 1 and Loki season 2. Considering what has happened across streaming and what has happened in other Disney series, that's not the worst thing in the world. Of course, you don't necessarily want that sort of a drop, but the first season of Loki really was able to generate excitement, unlike really, I think, any other Marvel show. WandaVision and that first season of Loki were really where I think the most hype was on the MCU on Disney Plus, and then things sort of began to fade and wane. Would Disney and Marvel probably have preferred that Loki season 2 held on a little bit better? I'd say yes, but it did seem to arrest the dramatic decline that we had seen for viewer interest in the MCU, especially in the last year or so. So I don't think that they can really feel too bad about Loki season 2. It did not match the first season. It was not a phenomenal success, but right now at Marvel, if you can just make something that is arresting the decline or stops the bleeding just a little bit, then I think that they'll take it. And that generally is what they seem to get with Loki season 2. We have just a couple more weeks of streaming data available as far as the top 10 shows. For the week of November 27th through December 3rd, I mentioned it, Young Sheldon ascends to the number 1 spot with 30.7 million hours watched. Squid Game: The Challenge is in second place at 23.96 million hours watched, followed by Bluey and Grey's Anatomy. Netflix's Obliterated debuts in fifth place at 12.36 million hours watched, followed by NCIS. Virgin River returned with new episodes and returns at number 7 with 11.7 million hours watched, followed by Suits at number 8, Friends at number 9, and The First Wives Club at number 10. And then the last week of viewing data that we currently have is for December 3rd through the 10th. Young Sheldon remains on top, 27.1 million hours watched, a very minimal decline from the week before. Squid Game: The Challenge is in second place, followed by Obliterated, Grey's Anatomy, and Bluey. NCIS is in sixth place, Suits is in seventh. My Life with the Walter Boys debuts in 8th place with 11.2 million hours watched. Virgin River is in 9th place, and The Big Bang Theory returns at number 10, which means that Sheldon is bracketing the top 10. Young Sheldon at number 1. Older Sheldon? Old Sheldon? Is that what we're calling The Big Bang Theory now? Old Sheldon? Anyway, The Big Bang Theory at number 10 at 9.86 million hours watched. We don't yet have a full year's worth of data for Nielsen, but I still want to look at the most watched series of the year, both original series and library series, or non-original series, acquired series, as Nielsen puts it. And I made kind of a big change here because for months, and people have asked me about this, Bluey and CoComelon sort of occupied a weird area. They debuted here in the US on streaming, or they had very small cable debuts, but they were kind of marketed as original programming on the various streaming services. So I listed them among the original programming, but Nielsen has now listed them as acquired programming or library programming. And for a while I said, well, I'll keep CoComelon and Bluey where they are because that's sort of where they began. But if I'm going to reflect Nielsen's data, then I feel like my definition of acquired or library programming needs to match their definition of library or acquired programming. So from now on, instead of listing Bluey and CoComelon as original programming, I will be listing them as library titles or acquired programming. And that really shakes up the chart as far as the most watched library and original series, both of 2023 and all time. So let's look first of all at the most watched original streaming series of 2023. This is through December 10th. And with the juggernauts Bluey and CoComelon out of the way, Ted Lasso now takes the number 1 spot. Now, overall, it is the 10th most watched streaming series of the year, but the most watched original streaming series at 181.3 million hours. Jenny and Georgia is in second place now, followed by The Night Agent and Love is Blind. You rounds out the top 5. Then we have The Lincoln Lawyer and The Last of Us, which was a hybrid streaming and over-the-air release. Outer Banks is in 8th place. Virgin River is in 9th. And The Mandalorian on Disney Plus rounds out the top 10. And now looking at the most watched library streaming series for 2023, number 1 remains Suits with 851 million hours watched. It's the overall most watched streaming series of the year. But Bluey is now number 2 at 667 million hours watched. NCIS is in 3rd. CoComelon is in 4th. Grey's Anatomy is in 5th. The Big Bang Theory is in 6th, followed by Gilmore Girls, SWAT, Friends, and then Heartland rounding out the top 10. And when we look at the most watched original streaming series from 2020, when Nielsen started reporting this data to present, again, this shakes things up quite a bit because Ozark is now the most watched original streaming series according to Nielsen data since 2020, at least until Stranger Things comes back. Stranger Things is just out of that #1 spot, but Ozark is #1, followed by Stranger Things. Then we have Virgin River, Manifest, and The Crown, which was boosted by its latest season. Cobra Kai is in 6th place. Wednesday, which just has 1 season, is in 7th place. The Great British Baking Show is in 8th place, followed by Love is Blind. And then Bridgerton, which is probably going to shoot way up this chart once the new season hits later this year. Then we have the most watched library streaming series from 2020 to present. NCIS remains #1 as it has been for a while, but Grey's Anatomy is threatening. It is now about 40 million hours behind NCIS, and they've put up 1.8 billion hours between them, so we could very well see a changing of the guard very soon as far as the most watched library series since 2020. CoComelon is now in 3rd, followed by Criminal Minds. Bluey is looking to eclipse that 1 billion hour watched mark very soon. It's in 5th place. Suits is in 6th, Supernatural is in 7th, Gilmore Girls is in 8th, and then we have Heartland and The Big Bang Theory. So some big changes there as far as the definition of library and original shows, and those will stick from now on, so we will track based on that. We have a few more weeks, as I mentioned, before we have a final year's worth of data so that I can report everything year-end on Nielsen. But really the takeaway from 2023, and it's been a crazy year, surprise successes like Suits and now Young Sheldon right at the end of the year. And then, of course, the second act for Elemental, which came in to be the most streamed movie of the year in the US. That's great news for Disney. Streaming is working as intended for that movie, at least. Who knows where we're going to go, but we will track those stories and all of that information right here on Streaming Charts with Dan. We won't just do it every 3 months from now on. I promise I'm going to try to do it at least once a month because streaming is an ever more important and an ever growing segment of entertainment news. But thank you for tuning in to this catch-up segment as we wrapped up most of 2023, and stay tuned right here on the channel for more streaming news, box office news, reviews, you name it. Thanks so much for spending part of your day here with me. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.